am Derangel, Head Reviews Editor for powerpc.com, and this is my review for Devil May Cry 4 for the PC. Released on February 5th, 2008 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, Devil May Cry 4 has seen some success. It has sold well and has been pretty well received by fans and critics alike. 6 months later, Capcom decided to release the game on the PC. In the months since its release, the game has done pretty poorly, due to poor reception from fans based on some problems the game has had, as well as lack of advertising on Capcom's part, and based on Capcom's previous efforts in the PC market. I have been a fan of the Devil May Cry series since it began on the PS2. I was disappointed by the second game, and I really liked the third one, at least on the PS2. Unfortunately, the third game ended up being pretty bad, and has really put a bad taste in gamers' mouths for Capcom's ports. Thankfully, Capcom decided to fix this issue, and recently decided to do all of their PC games in-house, unlike before when they were farming off to other studios. Devil May Cry 4 is the second such effort. Lost Planet was the first of these efforts. While it wasn't a bad game, it suffered from numerous issues, including poor optimization, and being a first-generation DX10 title really hurt it. Unfortunately, the gameplay options for Devil May Cry 4 hurt it somewhat. The game has absolutely no mouse support, and although that's not a big issue for games like this, it's still an oversight that should have been addressed. Charactering for a PC game in this era not to have mouse support, it's generally not a good sign. As far as using a keyboard goes, I wouldn't recommend it. Some people are able to use the keyboard well, but personally, I haven't been able to, so I had to use a gamepad the entire game. At its core, Devil May Cry 4 is very much like an old arcade action game. It prides itself on stylish and quick moves, and lots of combos. As you string these combos together across multiple enemies in different ways, you will earn style points that will increase the rank shown on screen. The higher this rank, the more red orbs you'll get when you defeat an enemy. These red orbs act as money, allowing you to buy different items, including items that will increase your health. At the end of each level, you will also earn something known as Proud Souls. These Proud Souls are used to buy upgrades to skills and abilities. You will earn Proud Souls based on your performance during the level, and you are graded based on time to complete, number of red orbs found, and your style points. The game's two main characters play a little differently, but unfortunately, Dante doesn't seem to play as well, as the stages are more designed for Nero in mind. So as you're playing Dante, he seems a little sluggish, even though he has the same moveset as in Devil May Cry 3.
What are you talking about? You will come to learn the meaning soon enough.
On the graphics side, Devil May Cry 4 looks alright, but it's nothing impressive. Thankfully, it's not bad. You may occasionally notice some lower resolution textures, but as quickly as you're moving through the game, or as quickly as you're supposed to move through the game, you shouldn't see too many. The game's art style works well for it, and thankfully everything seems like it fits. The enemies and character models themselves are obviously console-based, so they don't quite match what you might be used to on the PC side. The level design is linear, as you expect with this type of game, and the levels themselves are okay in size. They're nothing overly special. On the side of graphics options, you have MSA support, resolution, general quality, shadow quality, texture quality, as well as VSync, and an option to lock your game at a maximum of 50 FPS. Devil May Cry 4 supports both DirectX 9 and DirectX 10 modes, though DX10 doesn't do a lot, as most people would probably expect. The game also includes a built-in benchmark that seems to work pretty well and seems to be pretty indicative of your final performance during the gameplay.
I guess this doesn't quite cut it.
Years ago, the Dark Knight, Sparta.
The story of Devil May Cry 4 is your typical action affair. It's not overly impressive story, but it does work to give you a reason to go from point A to point B. You start the game as Nero, a character who looks a lot like a younger Dante. He is a part of his group that is dedicated to the resurrection of the Dark Knight Sparta. During a meeting, Dante crashes the party. This crash leads to Nero and Dante having a fight. This fight acts as your tutorial in the game. After the fight, you are sent off on a mission to go after Dante, and the story goes from there, leading you through various locations. At some point during the game, you'll end up taking control of Dante. At that point, you start going back through the same levels over again, which just feels like the story has been lengthened artificially, and unfortunately it doesn't stand up good enough for that to happen. Overall, the story does work for what it is. I don't have too many complaints about it, but the story isn't a reason to buy the game. The sound design seems to fit the recurring theme in this game. It works, but it's not impressive. The soundtrack is a mixture of your typical hard rock riffs that kick up when the action goes and die down as you're just exploring. The voice work is typical Capcom affair, with cheesy lines delivered overly dramatic, as usual. This is nothing overly new to the action genre, of course. We're all used to it by now. In conclusion, Devil May Cry 4 is the typical generic action title, unfortunately. On the PC, it may not be something we're all used to seeing, but it's still nothing special or nothing new.
And it's beginning to piss me off.
It doesn't quite capture the magic that the first game had, and I don't think it stands up to the third one either. On the plus side, it's still not a bad PC port. There are not a lot of bugs, but there are some issues with the game, unfortunately. These issues do prevent it from being a high rating score, and considering its current price, I would not recommend the game. At a cheaper price, it might be worth buying, but for right now, I would advise people to hold off and wait and see. If you have a gamepad and are just itching for an action game, maybe it'd be worth it while.
Bad for the complexion. I burn easily. Never tan.
When I came to this world 2,000 years ago, there was no such human as the Lycus.
Adios, kid.